Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. So right now on this video, it's a theme and a subject we started on my previous video, where we're going to make some box office projections and look at how this movie can do financially. The projections for this movie started at around $200 million domestically. The projections have now gone down to around 100 million domestically in the opening weekend to 120 to 30 million. So it's interesting. So I think it's going to have a huge opening box office where it's 100 million, 200 million. I would love every DC live action movie to come in at 100% Rotten Tomato scores and to finish up globally at $2 billion. But that's not the world we live in. DC doesn't have the consumer confidence right now, and it's difficult. But could we be looking at a situation where actually people embrace the 3 DCEU movies coming later this year a lot more than they do the Batman? A huge box office is dependent on the mainstream audience. Whether we like that audience or we give them any credit for any intellect, this is the important thing. You have to ask yourselves this: will audiences sit there again and again? Repeat views are the thing that makes films successful. Now, it's interesting. The Joker really had no action in it, but it brought home $1 billion. It brought home $1 billion because people like Joker, they love Joaquin Phoenix, and the controversy of it being a dangerous movie sent the general audience to watch it. And they loved that movie. The critics loved that movie. Critics mostly love the Batman. But we don't really know what the consumer reaction to this movie will be. We love it, those of us who have seen it. But are we expecting an ordinary Joe and Jane to go and watch the Batman again and again? A 3-hour movie that has, when it has action, it has significant, great action like we've never seen before. Like the Batmobile chase when Batman is going after Oz. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I still don't think it's as good as what Snyder did with the Batmobile in BVS when he's going after the goons who have the kryptonite. That is still one of the most amazing Batman sequences I've ever seen, and no one is anywhere near that. But the action in the Batman is awesome. But when you've got a 3-hour film that mostly is fleshing out characters and is very art house, right? Is this a kind of movie that people will go out to see? I think the intrigue for the Batman is huge. So I think the opening weekend will be huge. But as I said on my other video, people do go over to Rotten Tomatoes for opinions. It's a bit like when you're deciding what restaurant to go in. So you go and see what's got Michelin stars and what hasn't, what's got the most Michelin stars, blah, blah, blah. If you know anything about restaurants and the culinary industry, right? And so this is what people do. You see, you people who watch my videos, you're not ordinary moviegoers. You're mostly stands, right? You're mostly DC stands, probably MCU stands. You know how the industry works. You know what you like. So your opinion probably isn't going to be the opinion because we're stands, right? Do you get me? So we don't really know the opinion of the mainstream audience. The mainstream audience just want to go and see a film. But what do they look for? So this is an interesting thing when Superman Returns came out. Superman Returns would have made a lot more money if it had a lot more action and a lot less character stuff. Superman Returns is probably the most character-driven Superman film ever made. It has a great narrative as far as I'm concerned, and it has one of the best Superman sequences in live action when Superman's saving the plane, and there's other moments when he's lifting New Krypton. Amazing film. But it doesn't have enough action. But this is the problem we have with people talking about DC. They said Kate Bosworth was too young as Lois Lane, and he didn't have enough action. Snyder gave us Amy Adams, one of the greatest actresses of our time, and more action than we knew what to do with. What did people say? She's too old, too much action. So you can't win. So people are going to be reading the reviews, hearing how amazing it is, but they're also going to be reading it's too long, it's too dark, and the third act is problematic. My opinion is, as a stan, of course it's not too long, of course it's not too dark, and the third act is wonderful and exactly what I wanted from the movie. So now we come to the projections that have gone down significantly, which is interesting. So my projection now is, and I was talking about $1 billion and beyond, but I wasn't being realistic, I was being a stan. I want this film to make the most money ever. I do. I want every DC film to do that. When I tell you my projections for it, you shouldn't look at that as me being a hater or an arsehole. I'm calculating it, I'm evaluating it, and I'm thinking about Batman Begins that has a similar narrative to the Batman, but is executed in such an opposite. It's a polar opposite, but they're pretty much doing similar things, right? But Reeves has just gone deeper and harder, right? It's a bit like being a porn star, and you're a porn star who goes gently, and say I'm a porn star that really, really goes for it, right? Likes the destruction element, right? And I'm getting a bit crude here. Well, that's Batman Begins is the porn star that doesn't go hard. And basically, Matt Reeves is the porn star that really is going for it, right? So he wants to hear some squealing and stuff, right? And Christopher Nolan is a soft gentleman, right? So I don't know why I'm using porn as an analogy, but there you go. So Batman Begins made what? 300 million? Was it 400 million? So, and think about Superman Returns that barely made 200 million, which is astonishing, right? It was beaten by Pirates of the Caribbean movie that year. You know, Superman being beaten by that. What does that say about Superman? Well, I don't think it's because Superman isn't loved, but it didn't grab the audience's attention. And that's the problem with the modern day audience, even back in 2006 and 2005 with Batman Returns and Superman Returns. Sorry, Batman Begins and Superman Returns. For me, two brilliantly executed movies with lots of narrative, lots of character development, but the audiences didn't embrace it. And so we look at the Batman, which has probably got the kind of hype that Batman 89 had. Now, I watched Batman 89 last night, and I think it's an amazing movie. And it's actually a movie for the mainstream audience, Batman 89. Because you look at the Joker, you look at what Nicholson and Burton do with the Joker. He's doing some madcap stuff. It isn't like Phoenix's Joker, and he's nothing like Ledger's Joker. I mean, he's deeply fucked up, but he's dancing to Prince, and he's messing up, Jerry Hall's face and calling it art, and he becomes obsessed with Kim Basinger's character, and things like that. So even though it is a dark movie, and people call it a dark movie, I wouldn't call it a dark movie, I'd call it a stylistic movie. Tim Burton's got great quality. So there is a lot of laughs to be had from that movie, but it's very serious, and Keaton is a compelling Batman. And it's an amazing movie, but a very different movie to the Batman, where the Batman just goes hardcore. So when I look at the length, I look at the complaints of the tone, as usual, like Snyder got, because we can't have a serious, deep commentary on our world today and put it in, because Gotham City and Batman is a perfect kind of analogy for the world we live in today. So Reeves has gone for this. So he's gone very anti-corruption, anti-police. That's the kind of narrative he's got on it, right? I don't know what you'd call that, but that's what Reeves gone for, right? So very, very interesting. It will be interesting if people grab hold of that element and get upset by it. We'll have to wait and see. I believe that the Batman is looking for around 600 to 800 million. Now, as I say, I want that film to make as much as Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home is going to hit just under 200 million when it's all said and done, which is, it's nearly there. It won't reach 200 200 billion, sorry, 2 billion, should I say. I'm getting all my figures wrong. But yeah, it's nearly there. And it was always going to do that because of basically the cameos and all of that, and having these 3 Spider-Men together. So the Batman barely cost 100 billion. Again, I'm getting my figures wrong. The Batman cost just about 100 million to make. So if they reach from around 500 to 800, you know, in a higher estimate, they've made their money back. I mean, they could make Shazam money and still make a profit, because Walter Hamada, again, has done it with a low-budget, epic movie. It doesn't even look like it only cost 100 million. So well done to Matt Reeves and the team. So they've done it again. So this film will make a profit. This film will have an element of success. And whatever happens, there's going to be more Matt Reeves movies. But as I said in the other video, because you're going to have the best of both worlds here. You're going to have Matt Reeves, hardcore porn star, if you like, and you're going to have the other one, where Keaton's Batman is the main Batman, where it's a bit more lighter. And you've got Batgirl, who will be a bit more lighter. And I think that that's going to be very, very interesting going forward. So at this moment, I can't see this movie, you know, reaching over $1 billion or even getting close to Aquaman and the Joker movie. I want to be wrong about that. What I want from you in the comments are your projections for the Batman. This has been Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll see you again later with even more videos. Until then, goodbye, au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen.